reach out to us too if you need anything. So I know as district membership chairs, you've been going to your districts and you've been trying to make the clubs vibrant by changing time, place, location, formats. And then that's one thing you could do. The other thing you could do is you could start a new club. And you might say, well, what kind is a good club to start? Well, I love this quote from David McNally. It actually says, the most positive motivational force in the world is a cause. And I think that's so true. And I think that's why the cause-based clubs are so popular right now. So there's 5 things you have to remember. Why start a club? And we're going to actually start with the why before we get to the how. Then how to start it. What lessons did we learn from starting other clubs like this? What are the keys to our successes? And what are the opportunities? So why form a cause-based club? Well, first of all, it grows Rotary quicker. If Linda Cole and I were trying to bring in, the last club we started last month, we brought in 46 members. If Linda was trying to do that in her club or even her district, that might take a while. But with cause-based club or a new club, they come in chunks, right? They come in at least 20 because you need 20 to start a club. You need 12 is recommended for a Rotary club and 8 is for a satellite club. It retains members longer because most of our Rotarians, they leave within the first 2 years. I mean, actually, Rotary broke a record last year. It brought in more members than it ever had before, over 150,000. But unfortunately, it broke another record, and this isn't a good one. It lost more members than it brought in, more than 150,000. So it's like a revolving door. And they leave within those first 2 years. So if you have a cause and they have like-minded people who could work on that cause and they have that passion, they'll stay for the 2 years. Then they'll have lifelong friends like we all do for being in Rotary, and they'll stay. It just makes sense. It attracts younger members. And I'm sure Melissa was the same way growing up as I was. We were told to serve our community. So I joined my Rotary Club and we pick up trash along the highway. We rake people's yards who can't rake them themselves. We make sandwiches for the poor. But trying to get a millennial to pick up trash along the highway is hard to do nowadays because they want to have impact and they want to focus on one area. And how can they have impact? They could have impact by forming a cause-based rodeo club with all of your help as district membership chair. And with our grants, that's something that we can do. We could have impact with those grants. Also, it reaches out into our communities. It's interesting, when I started the Veterans Club, we had people driving an hour and a half to 2 hours to go to a meeting. And most of our traditional clubs, you know how they are, people either work in the area or they live in the area. And we can't get people usually outside of our area. And if we're meeting at noon or 7 a.m. at a country club or a hotel, it may not be as flexible. The other thing is partnership opportunities. When you start a club, like we did with the End Human Trafficking Club, we have different nonprofits, a lot of executive directors who their day job is to work on that cause. You bring them in, and it's a great way to partner to do different events. Because let's face it, we all know if you don't do events, then you won't be able to keep people there. So how do we form it? This is a picture of us actually at the state fair promoting the Rotary Club for Minnesota Veterans. And I'm just going to use this presentation. This is the first time I've given this presentation. It was made just for you. And I'm using real photos from the Veterans Club because it's kind of fun. So the most important thing you can do, well, first you find the cause, right? And you have to listen to the community and find the cause. But then is to find your champion. And if you have a champion, that's the person who is passionate about a cause. They know their why. And then you find support in local organizations that are already working on that cause. In the Veterans Club, we found a general, and that general just adds credibility when you're calling people up. It helps to have somebody who supports you. Okay, you have to recruit the right members, and you start in your home area. I mean, a lot of these clubs, especially Rotary clubs and satellite clubs, they sometimes start with their family members because you know them, they're low-hanging fruit. And then you choose individuals who are already involved in other organizations working on that same cause. In the veterans group here, we joined with a group called the Eagle Group that had started 10 years earlier, and they were helping veterans find jobs. We went to their events, they started coming to our events, and it gives you, you could data mine their membership list and those kind of things, so it helps. Important thing is diversity. That's another thing. And I know that in the Vets Club, they have all different kinds of races, genders, religious creed. But it really does help. And I'm not just saying that because it's a new buzz term. And I just want to give you a little bit of example. In diversity, when you start veterans clubs, and we've started a few since this one, you have different kind of individuals. And when you start a club, you have certain people who are drawn to certain positions. So when there's a president or president-elect, usually in a veterans club, that's somebody who's in the 82nd Airborne or a paratrooper, someone who's seen action. And then you have other offices that people are different personalities. So our president and president-elect fit that category, and they wanted to join Rotary, and they wanted their club to be, because these are mission-driven people, because they're veterans, they wanted their club to be the largest in our district by the year's end. And then we had a group of nurses. Two of them were women, and one was called Kathy Army and one was called Kathy Navy, because one was in the Army and one was in the Navy. And they were still commanders, but their thought was, let's bring in people slowly. Let's make sure they fit into our culture. And then we can invite them to be members. Well, the right answer was in between. And if you have diversity, you usually find the right answer. So the main opposition that you'll probably reach, at least that we usually reach, is the club presidents. And what they tell you is, don't take our members. If you start a new club in your hometown, you're going to be taking our members. So I asked Brian King, who's the RI Director of Membership Development, Brian, can you please study all new clubs within the last 5 years, including passport clubs and those kind of clubs, and tell us how many are actually new to Rotary? Well, it turns out that 88% are new to Rotary. And that includes the passport clubs, which a lot of times we're all mining our previous members who left for the passport clubs. And you have to say that some of that 12%, some of those have already left Rotary and they came back because of this club. And others, you can argue, they were going to leave. So if anyone, wants that data, we can let them know we are not poaching their members. So most of these steps are based on questions that we usually get from people who are starting clubs. And so we're trying to give you what you need. So we always get asked, well, should I just bring 30 people together or 50 people together and see what sticks? And we've tried it both ways. So, one of the underlining themes under this is, don't do it the way Gump did it, do it the right way. And so we've done this a few times and now we know the right way. So we start in smaller groups. This is a group of a few veterans that we're meeting. And the reason you do that is because when you meet with small groups, it's easy to discuss what they have in common. And you could ask them, when would you like to meet? When would you like to not meet? Where would you like to meet? What kind of format would you like a meeting? But if you have a big group, you have people taking sides. But if you have a small group, and we found out lunches work best for most people, then you have some answers and you go to the next group. They say, well, what do others say? And you could say, well, some of them want to do this. Some want to do the Pledge of Allegiance, some don't. And you have to remember it's the passion that unites them. Because whenever we say we formed a veterans club, someone will say, okay, I'm going to get the firefighters together. I'm going to get the teachers together. Well, it's not so much just the teachers, it's the teachers who have a cause that they want to eliminate literacy. And the veterans, it's not about being veterans, because they could do that. They could, socialize at the VFW, but they want to serve other veterans. Okay, find out what your members want. This is really, really important. You have to remember, all of us on this call, your district membership chairs or coordinators, you bleed Rotary. We bleed gold and blue. But you have to remember, when you're approaching this culture, you have to put their cause first. Like in this case, it was the veterans' cause, serving other veterans. Once they find out that we're going to eradicate polio as an organization, and we started the UN, they end up being true Rotarians. But they might start a little bit suspicious of what does Rotary want us for. So just remember, let them decide what their missions are, where they want to meet, when they want to meet. Okay, a question we always get, how much money does it start to cost to start a club? About $1,500. So there's different ways to do it. In the olden days, what we do is we'd have a sponsoring club, and those were usually the more established clubs inside the areas that are more populated, the inner cities, the major cities. And so what we have is, we have a young professional club, but it's in that same city. What we decided to do in our district is we actually put aside $8,000 in the district coffers and said, this is going to be used to start new clubs. So if Kimmy wants to start a club that's far out, or Linda wants to start a club that's far out, well, you can do that because you have this support. Now, the other thing we did is we passed a pro-growth policy. So what we said is, you're always going to have your international dues. You're going to have your club dues, but we said we'll waive the district dues for the first year that you form. And what that does is that goes when you go to a group, let's say you want to start a club on autism, they can say, well, what are you doing for us? You can say, you know what, we're going to waive the district dues. That little bit, it might not sound like a lot, but it gives buy-in from you, and that's important. And the other thing you need to do is you need to get all the clubs in your area excited about this, because it's interesting when you start a club, you can just start it with one club and not have the others participate. But if you call all the surrounding clubs and say, hey, can you donate a bell? Hey, can you donate a gavel? You can put your club's name on it in the chartering night. We had pull up banners, and I actually went to the district to the north and south of me for this club. And when you charter, everyone gets excited about it. Then all the other clubs in your district, they want to start clubs too. So, initial meeting. Club is being, remember, this is their own group. They want to do things their own way, but you can get a free facility. This is the basement and undercroft of a church. You can meet in a park as long as it's not winter. You could do those kind of things. Let them choose their officers and have a PowerPoint, because what I found out is a PowerPoint keeps people organized, and it also teaches the new Rotarians how to run a meeting. And I'm not saying that they'll want to do the four-way test in the beginning or the end. You let them be flexible. If they don't want to do a prayer, they don't want to do a prayer. But they will use your PowerPoint to start their meetings, because after all, you want to start it and go. Start the next one. File of paperwork. I promise this won't be boring. This will go quick, but it's important. There's only 5 things you need. A lot of people, we have satellite clubs grow, but then they don't want to file the paperwork. The paperwork is easy. Okay, application, 808A, it's a PDF, fillable form. You have to have a different form for a satellite club and a Rotary club. It's easy to fill out. The last page of the application is actually the membership list. And the membership list is, but before we get to the membership list, some clubs like to form a corporate entity in the state that they're in, which is fine. I would wait to do it until after the club is formed, because you want to get the name right. And sometimes customer club and district support will actually change the name a little bit. But that's easy to do. You can get an attorney in your club to do it. Then the member, and you have to have 5 officers: president, secretary, president-elect, treasurer, membership chair, Rotary Foundation chair. The hardest is actually the Rotary Foundation chair. I guess people would rather give an organ than ask for money. I don't know, but the reality is you need somebody who's got a little bit of knowledge of TRF. So I'm not the best joke teller, but I'm trying at 7 o'clock at night to keep you guys alive. Constitution, you don't have to file this. It's funny because when you fill out the 808A, you actually sign an affidavit that says we will follow the standard RI club constitution. The first few clubs I formed, I would draft a constitution. It wouldn't match up. It would get kicked back. And what I realized is they are comparing line by line for the constitution, not the bylaws. And they have forms that say constitution of blank, and they write in your club. So don't even file this. You don't need to. It's not required because you signed that affidavit. The bylaws, however, those are important because you might have certain things in there. So let's say Melissa is starting a club and she's got a gung-ho champion, and that champion is kind of pulling everyone together. She might want that individual to be president for 2 years, for the first time and not the second. And this is just an example of you could make it so that it's personal to that club. Now, don't put everything in the bylaws. You can have policies and rules that you put in a policy manual later on, because you don't want to have to vote to change this all the time. So the Constitution you can't change, bylaws you have to do. If you need forms, just let us know, and Melissa can get you forms too. And anything you need, I can get to Melissa for you. Okay, membership list. Like I said, it's on page 4, but there's an easier way than filling out a page 4 for the 30 members that you bring in. You only need 20, but let's shoot for 30 anyway. You could file with CDS. Again, that's customer. It's a club and district support. You can fill this out, spreadsheet, and send it in. The key is to fill it out as your members come in. Remember, the first club I started, my poor business partner had to spend 2 hours reading to me as I typed. Because, sometimes when you have a champion, they're really good at meeting people and really good at starting clubs, but they're terrible at filling out paperwork. Fill this out as you go. Don't leave any blanks. Put in an NA, not applicable, if not. And yes, you don't have to fill in every blank, but if you have too many blanks, it's going to be getting kicked back. You have to pay $15 per person. The key is when you send this in, make sure that the number of people that you have on your membership list matches your check. Because it's going to be really hard to get to that 20, but as soon as you hit that 20, you're going to have 5 or 6 more people come in, and you're going to want to get them to be charter members, and you could call them charter members anytime. But if you don't match the members with your check, it gets kicked back. But it's even easier nowadays, because nowadays, since COVID hit, you could actually give them a credit card, which is so much easier. You just call them up and give it to them. Now, this is a very, very important step that people stop. And I understand they don't do this step. They don't celebrate and have a charter event. And I tell you, when I formed my first club, I was tired and I didn't feel like doing it. But my DG said, Tom, we have to have a party. And he was so right, because you need to celebrate. You need to celebrate for your members. You need to have them invite their family, because they could be joining also. And it doesn't have to be in person. It could be virtual. When we did the Unhuman Trafficking Club, we had 285 people involved, because they were just, nowadays people are interested in that. And invite the media. You'd be surprised. You invite local media, something like veterans. You might say, well, Tom, we don't get local media at our regular traditional clubs, but if you're doing a cause, a lot of papers, like we have an inspiration section in the major paper here, and then some of the local papers get picked up by the larger papers, and some of those get picked up by the national papers, and we had media and everything there, so television stations and that's kind of fun, because you could use clips when you advertise on their website and things. Okay, now this is important. So the club starts. How do you keep people in? You got to have things for them to do. But the main thing is you got to make sure that those things actually match with their mission or their cause. They joined this club for that cause. So the veterans, they write cards, and they partner up with other Rotary clubs to write cards for active duty, especially this time of year during the holidays. They do blood drives. This is within a week of them starting. We had a grant management seminar for them. They got $20,000 in grants, and they took the first floor of that home behind them. It's a home for homeless vets. And they took the first floor and they made it into a game room. So they have video games and foosballs, all that kind of stuff. They would not have been able to do that for Rotary. Actually, the president of this club tried to start a chamber of commerce for veterans, because he had a couple hundred clients who were veterans. He's a banker, and it just didn't go. He just couldn't get it off the ground, because they didn't have that service component, and they didn't have those grants, and those grants are a huge deal. And they're going to do another project in another building next year, a medical, telemedicine, the other one interview. Okay, so these are simple. I'm only going to give you a few examples here of things we learned starting these clubs, and only one example for each club. Twin Cities Eco Club. What we learned from here is you got to jump in with both feet, and you just got to go hard. In this club, we got a couple people, then we waited a while, we got a couple more, and then 1 or 2 would fall out, and it took forever. There's a club on the West Coast that they've been working on an eco club for 3 years. It doesn't have to be that way. Get your people, get them to put their spouses in, contact the action groups, ask Melissa for her friends' names, and just keep on going. So the next club. Now, this is the one thing that you have to remember out of all the things I talked tonight, is you can do this, and this is easy. We started a veterans club, the first ever in the world in Minnesota. We do not have an active military base anywhere in our state. Now they're popping up in Florida, North Carolina, all over the place. We're helping one club in South Africa. And I'm not even a vet. So just remember, if Gump could do it, you can do it too. It's one thing to take away from here. The Unhuman Trafficking Club. What I learned here is you can really reach out to the community. I said, start with your friends and family, but a few weeks into this club, I saw we had a new member from Turkey, and I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, we had people from Thailand and Great Britain all over, but they inducted a woman from Turkey. And I can tell you the 3 new clubs, cause-based clubs we started last year, are the 3 clubs that are growing quickest in our district now. So they not only grow, they keep on growing. But so we were in that meeting. I said, that's kind of cool. After that meeting, I get an email from Mark Maloney. He's the immediate past president of RI. And he said, there was a woman in there named Erin Maloney. She was in your club. That's my sister. I've been trying to get her to join Rotary for 41 years, and she would never join. Well, why didn't she join? We didn't have the right club. So if DG Rich goes out and starts the right club this year, we can get people from all around the world to join. So now what people want to know is, what do these have in common? This is what they have in common. They have a passionate champion. They have someone who's going to go out there and going to get it done and enjoy doing it. They have friendship. You know, the military calls it camaraderie, but they have that friendship. People want to do things together. They don't want to do things by themselves, and they want to have an impact. They have a shared desire to serve. So you have to want to serve, because that's the thing that keeps them going. That's kind of the involvement. It all started with people they know, and they were supported by a club or a district, and you can be that supporting club and district. So people ask me, what's the easiest clubs for me to start? Because Melissa wants to get our membership numbers up, and now we need to do that in our district now. So I took the 8 easiest ones to do. Veterans clubs are easy. Why? Because it's already been done, so people believe it can be done. And if all of you believe it can be done, and you go home and you find a champion, you can get this done. If you don't, if you just listen and don't do it, you're not going to get anything out of tonight. So take this 8 with you, and just start talking to people. End human trafficking, autism, environmental, literacy, WASH projects, homelessness. We're hoping a group in Australia do one for homelessness in a certain area, and anywhere that you can serve others. And there's other ones. These aren't the only ones. So now my favorite part of the whole night is answering questions, because I want to know what you want to know, so I could tell you what you want to know.
So Tom, we do have one question that was in the chat. John Hall asks, how do you propose meeting in small groups during the pandemic? And what have you done to overcome some of that?
You know, that's a great idea. And what you can do is you could actually post different meetings from different groups that are already meeting, and just bring 4 or 5 friends together. You know, the important thing is actually listening to what people have a need for, because there's so much need in the area. If you just find out what they need and find out who's working on it, they could become your champions. It's really not that hard. If you're meeting, you know, a lot of nonprofits start from churches. They start in the basement of a church, a few people get together, and then eventually 10 years down the road, they're very large nonprofits meeting in their own space. But I can tell you, it can be done. You know, the Veterans Club was actually started before COVID, but we started the End Human Trafficking Club, which is now up to 40 members. We started a new club to empower women. That's got 46 members. Both of those were started actually during the pandemic. You know, right now we're working, when I leave this meeting, we're going to a travel club. And that started because a friend of mine who was in my club here in Minnesota moved to Florida. Her club wasn't doing international service. She met another lady there who's in the Peace Corps. So they're working all their global exchange friends, their Rotex friends, their youth exchange host families, and they're growing. And so they emailed a couple days ago and said, Tom, you know, I suggested we do virtual friendship exchanges. So they said, Tom, we want to do one in Fiji. So I said, okay. I pulled out my little list from IA, and they have the district governor from there, and I just looked it up, and you know, now we're working on that as of today. So Rich could do that for you, Melissa could do that for you. You got to make it fun.
So Tom, it's Bill Donnelly.
Hey, Bill.
Can you talk a little bit about identifying and overcoming the challenges that you've faced? I know you kind of put it in there, but really your view of the challenges that you faced in starting these 3 clubs is just simply starting them, and what you learned from that. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have those challenges. We all talk about, you know, and you know, the administrative part. And I love what you said. It's just like, if you read my article in the Zone newsletter it was like, just do it. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Bill, I'm really glad you asked that question. It's a very good question. And there's all kinds of different ways to start. And, you know, I first started the Veterans Club. I didn't start the right way. I was running the 4th of July parade, in my city, and I had a list of 200 people. So I had another Rotary Club help write letters, and we mailed letters out. So my first couple calls were, well, thank you for your letter, but my husband would have been interested in this, but he's dead now. Those were my first two calls, but they were exactly the same. But what it turns out is you need not to get discouraged, and you need to know it's easy to do and you can do it. It's funny because, when I talked to some people, they said, Tom, we don't need a veterans club because we have the VFW and we have the American Legion. And I say, well, what do you do there? Well, we go in, and if we have problems, they say, here's a drink. But they don't have people getting together to raise awareness for suicide, or they don't have people coming together to, build the career center in the basement of a veterans home. And it's funny, Bill, because the way we started the End Human Trafficking Club is we had an ongoing, it was a multi-year, maybe 3 years in our district, a district to the north of us and a district to the south. And the woman who was head of that came to Lloyd and I and said, well, we're going to quit Rotary. And I'm like, why would you quit Rotary? And they said, well, because, we might get an End Human Trafficking speaker once a year. We might get one district grant, but then they won't let us do anything for the rest of the year because we have all these other great water projects and great sanitation projects, economic development, maternal health. And I said, you need to start your own club. Oh, I can't do that. That's too much effort. I said, Karen, you have at least one champion in every club in our district, plus champions to North Cheshire South. Goes, well, if you do all the work, we'll do it. Well, it turns out she did the majority of the work. All I had to say is, you can do it. And it's funny, Bill, because, and a lot of us may have had this experience, but when I was president of my club, what I wanted to do was I wanted to grow that club. And I thought that I just would talk to everyone I know. So I did, at the gym, at church, at my neighbors, people at work. I'm sure everyone is sick of me talking about it. But what I realized when you start new clubs there's all these people to help you. You have Melissa to help you. You have Scott, all these people on this call will help you out. So when we were doing the End Human Trafficking, you get a few and then it stalls and you get a few. So I called my DGA classmates and, maybe DG Rich can do this for you. And I said, okay, we need someone to call. I need a few more members. So my one friend said, well, I'm not going to join, but obviously he's DG. But he said, my wife will join, but I'm not going to ask her. You have to ask her. I said, I'm not going to ask her. So I asked my wife to ask her, and she joined, and that was our 20th member. The other thing is, I reached out to RAGIS, which is the Rotary Action Group Against Slavery, and to one of their board members. She emailed the rest of the board. 2 of those board members joined, including the head of it. And then a third one asked me to write an article, which I did, and we got a member from Thailand out of it. The thing is, we have all these people, Bill, to help us in Rotary, and you don't do it yourself. You get all your friends to help. So it really isn't that hard. Everybody brings in a couple members, and with the cause-based clubs, it's especially easy because most of these individuals either work for an organization already working on that cause, or they have friends involved in it, and they bring their friends in. And when the club joins, it keeps on growing.
That's awesome. I love your passion and whatnot. So let me ask you one other thing. You mentioned like the American Legion and the VFW. And you talk about the veteran group, you talk about the ECHO group and whatnot. How much outreach did you do to already existing groups that had that same passion to either join together to move things forward in your community, and or look at them as potential members, members, or more importantly, to help provide the kind of service you were looking at? And then I'm going to turn it over and open it up to other questions, because you and I could talk for hours on this.
Bill, you're absolutely right. Involving other groups is essential. And it's not only essential for you to grow, it's also essential for you to actually get out in the community and get more people, because the presidents are right. If we only look in our club and we only look to the same people we know, when you're Rotarians, I don't know about you guys, but the guy who handles my money, my car repair guy, my doctor, everyone is a Rotarian, right? If I want to reach out to other people, we have to do things that they do. So when I told you the Eagles group, I would go to their golf tournaments, and Lloyd and I would sit at the table and we'd hand out brochures. I would buy a $10 hat, but I'll tell you, after you do that a few times, they had a mailing list of 900 people. They wouldn't give us the list. I mean, several people wanted us to have the list, but instead they emailed out for us. But it's just a great way. Rotary can be the magnet that brings all these groups together. It could be the umbrella group, because so many of them, like the End Human Trafficking, it's amazing how there might be a doctor who has a nonprofit and all she does is, this is sad, but they actually, some of them have branded like barcodes on them. She takes off those barcodes, that's her nonprofit, but she works with law enforcement and all these other groups. So Rotary can bring those all together in a summit, and could bring them all together with the district grants and local grants and
Absolutely.
the global grants too.
Yep. So I'm going to read there's a question in the chat
you.
box. I'm going to read it for Eric, and then, anybody else. I think it's easier, given that we have 40 plus people on here. If you put your question in the chat box, I'll bring it back to you, Tom, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So from Eric, he says, why do these causes need Rotary? And how do you convince these champions that Rotary is a good vehicle to help their cause?
Eric, that is one of the best questions that have been asked tonight.
Don't give him a compliment, please.
Sorry, Bill, but it is. And that's a very good question, because like I was telling you with the vet and the Chamber of Commerce, why don't they just start their own? Because Rotary has a 115-year reputation of doing good in the world. Rotary has the district grants, it has the global grants, it's got the Rotary Foundation with the 5-star charity navigator rating. All those things together give them a platform for which to launch their own club. Yes, Rotary hasn't been perfect, and yes, it took us a long time. We're just getting our first female president coming up. We've been far from perfect, but we can get things done, and we have an international organization where we could hook up with others. For our zone conference in Houston in September, we're bringing a bunch of end human trafficking folks together for a panel. Why can we do that? Because Rotary can reach out to different areas of the world. If you go to a zone institute or summit, what do you guys call yours there? What do you call your zone institute?
Zone Institute. Yep.
Oh, okay. Zone Institute, or a convention, you can meet people from all over the world and you can really spread it. There are ways you can hook up with the action groups. You can have, you can go to your pets. You can go to all these things and have tables. All these things that are set up for a club that wouldn't otherwise happen. It's hard to do it on your own, but with Rotary can help you with your passion. That passion plus Rotary gets the service done. It's just that simple.
I thought one of your best lines in there is far from perfect. We always, well, no. I mean that it's a true compliment, because I think we all try to plan to be perfect, and it's not a perfect world. So it's not you've got to try things. So I'm going to, Dana from 7150 asks, are the members of the Veterans Club all vets, or are there non-military members passionate about the cause?
I love that question, and it's a great question. Rotary does not allow you to have a club that excludes people. We are very inclusive when it comes to membership. So anyone is welcome to the Veterans Club. All they have to do is have that exclusive service to serve veterans. We have the head of Hennepin County, that's the largest county in Minnesota. That sheriff is in the Vets Club. Why? Because his family were veterans. We have a pastor whose son-in-law is a veteran. So you don't have to be a veteran to be in there. And the other thing is, sometimes, Bill, I get asked the question, well, won't you get politics entered into this? We have certain groups, like groups that support women, but we've never had anyone say we're going to be pro-life or pro-choice, and that's why we're forming this club. Rotary doesn't allow politics into a club for a regular club, so it doesn't allow it in for cause-based. And people, it's all about the service, and that's what they care about. But I love that question. You could have anyone in any club. They don't have to just be a veteran for the Veterans Club. Thank you.
I'm going to toss, this is from Drew Ashley. I'm going to toss this to you because I know how I'd answer this. How do we get more youth and young adults into Rotary?
That's an excellent question. And the reality is, and really, Kimmy can tell you, because her club in New York works in this really hard, you have to make it open to family. I mean, why? I'm thinking, we're declining in North America like this, but you have places like India that are, inclining at the same rate. Why? I mean, if we went to India and we went to a district conference, literally there'd be thousands, not 8,000, but thousands of people there. Here, we're lucky if we have 100 to 200. Why? Because they involve their families. We can involve our families. You know, there is, when I was on Kimmy's panel for the Rotary International Convention breakout for last convention, I was doing research in all the creative clubs around the world, and I found one in England called Maidenhand Bridge. And, you know, Ireland and Great Britain is having their membership problems too. But this club, they changed the time, the place, and the format of their meetings. They meet at a coffee club on the first and third Sundays. They bring their partners and their children there, and they play bridge, and the kids play together. Why can't we do that in the US? Well, the answer is we can. And if we bring in our families, you know, some of us get so involved in Rotary. I didn't eat dinner with my family tonight. You guys didn't either because we're on this call. And, you know, it's hard to, some of my friends, when I asked them to join my traditional club that I'm a part of, you know, they say 7:30 in the morning, I want to be at the bus stop for my kids. But if we change our meetings, we can do that. But the key here is it's hard to change people. If you have a culture in a club and you want to change a meeting time, you want to change a meeting place, and Linda Cole and I were just talking about this right before this meeting started. It's hard because we've been doing it that way. We don't want to change. But to start a new club, Bill, we take a culture that already exists, so we don't have to change anything. I would argue it's easier to start a club and a cause-based club than it is to change an existing club. And there's room for both. I mean, we love our existing clubs, and I don't want Melissa yelling at me because I'm not preaching retention, because that's really, really important, because we love our clubs. They're the backbone of what we do. But if we want to grow, let's let them tell us what they want, and let's just do it.
So,
I mean,
Tom, so
yeah.
I agree. So, Tom, I'd argue with Melissa that it's really attraction versus retention that's most important. But be that as it may, so Cecily, to your point about Cecily Smith, who's an ARC, and she's also she's also an innovative club advocate, says that, and Cess, with Melissa, maybe you can get the emails for everybody, but the ICA team is having a focused how to start an eco club talk with a takeaway toolkit on January 19th of 2021.
Wonderful.
Okay. I actually was a part of a discussion last week in 7230 about them starting a satellite club. They did a very, a satellite echo club, which was they had a great PowerPoint and whatnot. And then they kind of were like, what's the next step? And I said, did you read your PowerPoint? Your steps are right in the PowerPoint. Just go out and do it. And don't worry about, to your point, sometimes we get hung up on administration about, starting the club and the filing the paperwork. And I think, to your point in time, you've made it clear, is that, to me at least, that what we need to do is just take action. And
Bill, that's perfect. You should have given this seminar, because you're 100% right. You know, someone called me the other day and said, well, we're not going to start to after January because we don't want to have to pay club dues. If anyone's in that position, I'll go raise the money for you to start that club, because by the time you wait till after January, people might be interested in something different. They might find something else. Rotary has gotten more contacts this year, people calling up and saying, I want to join Rotary, but I don't really know much about it, because people want to be involved. They want to be connected. And with COVID, it's hard to be connected. This is our time to start. And yes, it would be nice to have in-person meetings, but you know what? We can do the same thing virtually. There's companies that you can ship a virtual cocktail to somebody's house. If that champion, you know,
Did we lose Tom? Oh, no.
he's back. He just, I think.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
back.
Sorry.
You're back.
Sorry,
We need the address of that virtual cocktail company.
Okay, I'll email it to Melissa.
It's like
So
I always
Tom,
say.
one of the things that I know that we've come across in starting new clubs, at least in district clubs, is sometimes if there's a club in the area, it gets mad that there's a new club being chartered in its orbit. Have you faced any of that with any of these clubs?
I really have. And you know, the first thing I ever do if I'm ever helping out a club, especially if it's not in my district, I let whoever is in charge, usually the district governor, know that I'm there and I'm helping out. And I want everyone on this call to know I'm free to help out, and I would never. We want your clubs to start in your district. You know, there's different ways to do it, Melissa, but really you can start a satellite club with only 8. So you could take a satellite club off of an existing club and make it an eco club, make it, you know, whatever. Rotaract is 12, recommended, doesn't have to be. But I would say if you're less likely to get in trouble with another club if you bring in your own people. So not Rotarians, but reach out into the community and bring those in. And those people are there. You just have to listen as to what they want. And do a totally new idea that your club's going to be stronger if it doesn't have a lot of Rotarians in it. It has its own identity. But there's no way to get around politics, Melissa, because the reality is I helped start one in Houston, a vets club, and it started like that. There's one in East Plano where there's a lot of veterans there, but there's 2 different clubs who want to be the sponsoring club, and it hasn't gotten started, and it's been going around for a long time. So I think you got to try to get egos put aside, and get a champion who's passionate, because that champion could work around that.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't agree more. I think we have to get beyond worrying about what other people are going to say, because I think, Tom, what to me at least, what you've told us is that this is really about service. What we're doing here is providing an opportunity for people to serve, and if that isn't our first focus, then we've lost focus in doing that. And I think what you've continued to do is tell us and help us understand that that's exactly what we need to focus on. So thank you for that. That's awesome. So let me see. Cecily also said everybody will get an invite. Who else has a question? I don't want to.
Oh, I was just going to ask real quick, is there anybody on the call that's already tried this? Have you tried creating a cause-based club or a new club within your district and hit any stumbling blocks? So Peter did. So Peter, why don't you unmute and maybe share with us?
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, I'm with the North Reading Club, District 79, just north of Boston. When I was president in 2011, 2012, we had 22 active members, very vibrant club. Over the years, we just started to hemorrhage, and we were down to 5 members. And when we heard of Rotary's initiative of cause-based clubs, we became interested in opiate addiction. And we are now the North Reading Rotary Addiction Cause Club. So far, we've inducted 2 new members and brought back 2 members that had departed. So I guess we're 100% up on new members and 100% on retention, if you look at it that way. The pandemic has been a little difficult for us because we had some speaking engagements planned with some local nurses, but obviously you can't meet at the library. So, we are still active. We're still trying to be as positive for the community. And it was a godsend, to be honest with you, because we probably would have had to have merged or just folded if we hadn't gone that route. And there's so many types of addictions that, as Tom was mentioning, there's hundreds and hundreds of causes that are out there that we sometimes don't even think about. So I hope that helps. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Peter.
Well,
Thanks,
thank you,
Peter.
Peter, for bringing that up, because that's a very good point. Because all of us, we go to a Rotary meeting once a week, and we have speakers all the time. We had a opioid panel the last 2 years at a club in our district, and we've never started that, Peter. And I got to tell you, DG Rich, if you're talking about going to the bottom line, the best thing you can do is start a new club, because you bring in 20 members, that's 20 more dues payers for the rest of the year. Your budget will go up every year. You have more hands to do service. You have more good ideas. So Peter's right. I think we should all take a little notebook with us, and we should go to our next Rotary meeting or look at the schedule and write down the causes. Pick someone who's passionate about it, who's ever passionate about opioid addiction. We have a doctor in our club who's the head pharmacist at our local hospital. He should start a club like this, or get one of his, coworkers to start that. Yes, sir.
And just on that point, Tom, not that you mentioned before about cannibalizing, we're reaching out to the entire district to bring Rotarians in from other to help out, not to steal them, okay? But and also too, to bring newer members. If we have nurses or specialists that are guest speakers, they can become either friends of Rotary, or they can become Rotarians, and we bring in their children, as you mentioned earlier, or the husband or the wife or the partner, and everybody else. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
We are all serving on various nonprofits. If we are in a nonprofit for developmentally handicapped, talk to those people and see if they want to join a Rotary club. You might have already asked them to join Rotary, but they might have said no because they wanted to focus in their area. Let them start their own club, and it could be. Yes, Peter.
I'm sorry. Another thing too, the Burlington Breakfast Rotary Club is reaching out to Leahy Clinic to maybe form a satellite there, which could then become the Rotary Club of Leahy Clinic. That's another thing that we can think about too. Just thinking of businesses or business owners who are Rotarians can start their own satellite or their own Rotary Club within their business. Those are, that's happening in India and probably in other countries and the US, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. So Peter, one thing that we did at International Assembly last year is we had an exercise where they took a bunch of Rotarian magazines and they just spread 5 or 6 of them out over the table. And we had an exercise, and I can get this to Melissa, but it basically, you go through there and you form your own club. You come up with the name of it, you come up with this. And, I typed all those up, and I have, I organized them into certain areas. But, you just got to get people thinking, and they just got to know that you can do it. Remember, if Gump could do it, anybody could do it. So yes, Bill.
Andrew, you wanted to say something? Are you on mute?
Yeah, Yandy Glacier, 7780, Maine and New Hampshire, just north of Peter, actually. Our past district governor, Carolyn Johnson, is forming a cause-based e-club, and the cause is literacy. And so being an e-club, she's not confined to the territory of our district. She's making this primarily a North American and Central American club. So
that's wonderful. I love
we hope to have that up and running in January.
That's fantastic.
I know we're running up again, so I'm going to ask one question, and I'll open it up again. And this was from Dana. Here was the question: to what extent do you recommend separating those district volunteers working on innovative clubs from those working on existing clubs' growth and retention?
That's a very good question. We already have Melissa, who has a bunch of assistants who are focused on retention and focused on membership. And I don't know how someone like Melissa can actually give as much time as she does. And she does such a great job. And I mean, she has to find out from her assistants, set goals for the years, follow. Yeah, big round of applause for Melissa. Reaching out to people like me to come speak. They already have that done. When they started the Independent Club Advocates, they wanted to have a little bit different, fresh perspective when it started, because they figured that North America and the ICA programs, most of North America, they were going down, and we've been at 1.2 million people for 25 years. So they wanted to do something different. But I really think that, and Melissa could probably better speak and knows more than I do about this, but there's got to be good communication between the Independent Club Advocates and the RCs and the assistant Rotary coordinators, because if you don't have a structure, it's hard to keep going. When Melissa starts doing something else after 3 years, something else great for Rotary in her next great position, you want to have some continuity. And different people have done it different ways, but most zones now are setting up teams that report to the RCs. So they have some autonomy and they go around speaking on this. But it's hard for everyone to do everything. And Melissa has so much to do already. It's good to have extra help. And really, as a district, as a DG, I would say you should have an independent club. And this is all if Melissa says it's okay. I would have an independent club advocate in every district, because you have the people focusing on regular membership, but starting new clubs is a different skill set, I think.
Agreed. Agreed. So we're a couple of minutes, we got 4 minutes left. Tom, why don't you, give us your elevator pitch on this, and then you wrap that, and Melissa, you take it over and wrap for the evening. So Tom, it's all yours.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Melissa. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for trying. Basically, there's 3 ways to grow Rotary. You could increase the current club membership, you can retain your members that you have, and you can start new clubs. We have to do all of them. But my argument is, and I really believe this and found this, when you start new clubs, you grow quicker, and those clubs continue to grow. There's lots of people to help you. Melissa, all your assistant Rotary coordinators, all of you district membership chairs. And if you need anything from me, just ask Melissa, I'll get it to her and she can distribute it around. But you gotta be an advocate and you gotta talk about it. And if Melissa says it's okay and you need me to talk to any of your districts, I'm happy to do that, or Melissa can, or ARCs can. But it's really important because we go to zones, we go to national conventions, we don't really talk about new clubs a whole lot. We're starting to, but we talk about retention. And we've been doing that for 25 years and it's good, but we have to start new clubs as well. And I think you are the people to push this message because everyone looks up to you as district membership chairs. Thank you.
Tom, thank you very much. Melissa, it's all yours.
That was a perfect conclusion. Yeah, we really do have to be thinking hard and working at creating new clubs within our districts. It's probably the best way for us to grow and improve. I thought I saw a hand or two up, but I think I might have been mistaken. So I think really Missy said it best. Thank you so much, Tom, for your presentation. Fantastic discussion. You gave everybody a lot to think about. And hopefully a couple of little action item takeaways. For the DMCs, if you don't forget, we meet again in 3 months, next quarter. If you have any specific topics that you would like to see us talk about, or if you just need a brainstorming session, please let me know. And I think that pretty much covers it. Please stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the holidays. However you celebrate well. And God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Night all.
Thanks, guys.
Night all. Be safe and well.
Thanks, Tom. Great job.
Stay well, Melissa. I'm glad Rick's home. That's great news. Yeah, I know. Talk to you soon.